powerful voice. Kaleo and Magic in the morning at 8:35. Mike Barrett in the studio with us for Good Policies with Barrett Insurance. How you doing, bud?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm okay. Until we heard I come back from the weekend. And, of course, we had the big excitement of the St. JLI game. And then in our news yesterday, story that we got an update on today, we had a family lose their two young boys in a house fire.
Just devastating.
These are hard stories to read, hard stories to listen to out there. But in today's news update, which we'll bring up at 9 o'clock here, they found the cause of the fire, and it's something that, along with some of our other clients we talk about here, fire is a horrendous thing.
It is.
Your ad campaigns are saying, the worst time to find out if your insurance is good is when something happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this one here appears to have been a dryer vent shoot fire.
Yeah, and that's a high cause of fire. I'd say number one is wood stoves, but I'd put dryer vents within the top 5 causes of loss for fire. And, October is Fire Prevention Month, and I think it was a week or two ago that they actually had the big campaign where they had it specifically for a week. I think it was the 6th to the 12th in that time frame. But, truth be told, every day is Fire Prevention Day. It really is. I mean, that should be your goal, is to have some level of consciousness of what you as a homeowner or a property owner should do or can do to hopefully mitigate the chance of loss. How many of us, including me, including you, check your dryer vent as often as we should? Probably,
We did a few months ago when they had to replace the washer and dryer.
There you go. And that's probably the last time I did.
We did find out, though, that our vent chute is up to par. Now, again, some of our other clients, which we'll be chatting with tomorrow, have let us know that there have been changes to the law where PVC type vents are no longer acceptable because of the risk of fire.
Right, because they will hold on as opposed to letting the particles pass through. And once you get that clog, that can become quite a problem, and as is evident in that loss over the weekend. Very, very sad circumstance surrounding that. But, this is the time of year where we're going to be using things that can cause fires. All right. So obviously we use dryers year round. So you should probably try to check that every 3 to 6 months. If you have a short run, I have a very short run, so it's fairly easy for me to do it. And also because it is a short run, it's not often showing much signs of being clogged. But it's certainly something to do. But, before you fire up, you're smelling the wood stoves burning. Have you checked the chimney? Have you cleaned it? Have you inspected it? Have you gone to make sure there's no cracks in it? The crack in a chimney is the reason for a chimney fire quite often, or is a result of a chimney fire quite often. My apologies. So you want to make sure that you have a clean chimney and that you don't have a crack, because God forbid if you have a crack and then you have a dirty chimney and a chimney fire occurs, that crack is going to be a pathway for the fire to make its way outside the chimney into your house, and it could become much more than a chimney fire. So that's huge as well. But then let's go to the basic things. And I heard in the loss with those children over the weekend, thank goodness, when the fire department arrived on scene, the smoke detectors were going off. Thank goodness. It's important to have the batteries replaced. With technology and all these advancements, it's wonderful to know that there are those 10-year lithium-ion battery smoke detectors. But don't ever set it and forget it. A lot of people don't realize this, but on the back of the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide detectors is a little date, and that date will tell you the date of manufacture. And I think the typical rule of thumb for a non-lithium-ion 10-year battery is a 5-year lifespan for many of these detectors. So, be changing the batteries at least twice a year, even if they're hardwired, because if the power goes out, that's when the batteries are needed. So the hardwires are not going to work for you unless you have the batteries in them.
Well, and the batteries that are in them are not rechargeable batteries, so they're not charging. So
exactly,
we've heard St. J. Fire Chief during the campaign that you mentioned a couple of weeks ago.
Sure, yeah.
That it's a great habit for families to get into when they set their clocks to test their smoke and carbon monoxide detectors to make sure they're working. See, we live in a rental property, and I think if I understand this right, by state law, they have to be hardwired in, but they also have to have that working battery backup.
So somewhat yes, somewhat no. I think the way the state of Vermont still kind of has the code on that is if it's 4 families or more, that's when it's required hardwired. And that's when it's required hardwired and placement, because that's when you have to be within sleeping quarters and on all floors. Because it's nice to have it in the hallway, but that door could be closed or should be closed, so you're going to want it within that room. But for single family or less than 4 family, it's not really mandated by the state that I'm aware of, unless they've changed it, that it be hardwired, but it is mandated that they have at least something.
Right.
And that's when those 10-year lifespan ones are key. Because if you walk into a rental property, we insure a lot of the rental properties within the area. Very common to walk through and look into a tenant's property and see that not only is the smoke detector battery out, but it's unplugged from the hardwired connection because it might have set off a alarm once or twice. The good news is the new photoelectric models have less of a probability from the cooking to have those false starts, if you want to call it that, or false alarms. But the ionic ones are still very much out there. Some are combination photoelectric and ionic. So yeah, they can still set off in the kitchen, but it does not give you cost to unplug them because you could be putting not only your life in jeopardy, but everybody else in the building.
Right. Even if it's not fire, carbon monoxide claims lives, unfortunately, too.
Yeah.
I think it's great that we're talking about this combined with insurance as we head into the heating season. A lot of folks, I've never bought a home, but a lot of folks, when they buy homes, buy them prior to the heating season. So, that's when their insurance comes up due and so on and such forth. Time to think about this and think about making changes.
Yeah, some of the basic things to do for sure would be just to do some basic winterization around the house. Even something as foolish and simple, which is not a fire-causing thing to do, but to walk around and make sure that the spouts for your hoses are either covered or that the water is turned off on the inside so you don't have frozen plumbing, which could become a devastating loss to your basement.
Of course.
So from that to checking the firebox in your wood stove to making sure that everything is properly spaced. So you have that minimum space allotment of 18 inches if you have a fire shield or 36 inches if you don't from combustibles. Checking the chimney, things like that. These are just some very basic insurance 101 or safety 101 things you can do to hopefully have a safe winter.
Well, if you've got one of those through-the-wall chimneys, that people add on to get like an ambient or a separate wood stove, pellet stove in a room, make sure that around it is safe.
Yeah, the pass-through has to be safe. You have to make sure it's an appropriate pass-through. Again, you're talking about close proximity. Even with a double metal blisterless chimney, if you don't have the proper spacing with a pass-through, that can become a problem over time. So you may not have burnt today. I hear a lot, hasn't burnt in 20 years. Well, it could burn in the 22nd year. So show that extra side of caution just to be safe.
All right. Contact info, share it.
Sure. Give us a call, 748-5224. You can visit us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. Also online, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, and YouTube, all Barrett Insurance Agency.
Now, we've had some great chats, great subject matters, but we always encourage our listeners, if there's something that they would like us to talk about, to let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to field questions and bring it to air. So if you want to email me any questions, thoughts, or concerns that you have, my email address is mike@thebarrettagency.com.
All right, Mike. Thanks a bunch.
Have a great day.
With you again next week, okay?
All right.
Stay warm.
I'll try.
And don't go walking around with umbrellas with the wind coming up. Music, by the way, Asher Knight and Andy.